Okay, what I thought I'd do here is just have some fun and update my review on KTVA because that's making the rounds. And I've been wanting to post more often. I just usually don't have anything to say. So, in the years since I did that review, uh, a lot's happened. I stopped singing music with the tribute band or with the cover band, and basically kind of gave up on music almost altogether. I stopped singing regularly. I stopped working out, the whole thing. Um, and I also got older, so I learned more about how to relax and how not to be in a hurry about certain things. And I just started to discover things. So I guess what I want to start off with is just a quick distillation of the hard parts of KTVA, the hard parts. Number one, let me just say it right up front. Ken goes too fast. He just goes too fast. He's disorganized. He goes too fast. It's really hard to follow. You don't know if you should be trying to sound like him or trying to sound like you. I don't think he's a great teacher. I think he's kind of a bad teacher, actually. But that doesn't mean what he says isn't right or doesn't work. In fact, I feel comfortable saying that it does. Um, but his ideas are complex, not because what he's advocating for is complex, but because the way he explains is complex. I'll give you an example. He talks a lot about compression and holding your breath and distortion and all that stuff. But really, I'll tell you what I've learned, and your mileage may vary. I'm not trying to coach you into one direction or another. The ping is king idea turns out like basically a very bright um, sound, timbral sound. That's the same thing as holding your breath back. If I go, it's all the same thing, right? That's super loud. I'm sorry. It's the same thing as trying to go. Now, the mechanism, whatever, they're 80% the same thing. But if you learn how to hold your breath, one of the things that's cool about that is there's something that happens in your throat as you're doing it. One is you start to feel your throat stay open, and that's actually one of the exercises that I wanted to show. Is he goes is like la la, and I never really understood what this exercise was. Like we would do it, and I'm like, this doesn't feel like it's doing anything. I don't really understand what it's doing. But what I learned is that when you connect these three moving parts, the bright sound, which it has its own effect. The bright sound is not built for holding back air. It just happens to do it. Holding breath and then the compression in the back of the throat, which happens well when you know how to keep your throat open. So I'm going to try and demonstrate, if I can, toggling these three variables on and off to show you what it sort of sounds like if you're doing it correctly. If we use that scale of the la, if we use that, the trick of that scale is that you're trying to keep the sound, what would normally be a bel canto sound, being la, if you think of that variable, that's the throat as open as it possibly can be with a dropped larynx, so that creates the biggest sound possible. The problem is, it Ken correctly points out, you can't take that very high. You certainly can't take it through the mid voice at all. So you have to close down. But if you close down, you don't have your air, you haven't figured out how to restrict the air, you're just going to choke. You're going to go la, and that'll be it. That'll be all you can do. So the way to fix that is that you got to bring the sound just a little forward. He talks about creating an amphitheater. So you go la, and I'm not necessarily throwing it straight to the front. I could do that. La. See, that's the same thing. Same idea, the throat's almost as open, but I'm sending it forward in my palate so that it's coming through the nose, is mask, whatever it is. People make stuff complicated, and it's just to prop themselves up. I'll be honest with you. It's real simple. It's very simple. If I want to go, hey, like that's the same idea. I'm doing the same thing. Or, hey, like, whoa. Like if I go, whoa, or I go, hey, I'm doing the same thing. Your body already knows everything. That's one of the things that frustrated me so much about going through his stuff is that your body, by the way, great singing, great singing, your body already knows how to do it. It already knows how to do everything. If you yawn, that's the technique of open throat. If you try and go to the bathroom, that's that's diaphragmatic support. It's really not that complicated. And your body already knows how to react. If I go to yell, it's going to cut off the air, it's going to push the diaphragmatic support, and it's going to open the throat. Same if I laugh. It's the same thing. It drops the tongue. No, I didn't do that on purpose. It just did it. Body already knows what to do. You just got to unlock these exercises. So if I use this is the point I'm trying to make, is if I use this la, what you're actually learning how to do is hold the air back at the same time as bringing the voice forward, at the same time of using support, at the same time of managing your timbre. Versus la. See, I thought the idea was that growing the voice or making your voice sound bigger on a record was actually making it as big and as loud as you possibly could hear. It's not true. Go listen now that we can. It's really easy to do AI stems of recordings. Go listen to some of the biggest songs you can think of. The biggest voice, biggest song. You're like, that sounds huge. Go listen to the stem. I guarantee you, it's going to be like super light and super thin. That's compression, meaning audio compression, meaning a compressor, meaning a tool that's doing that. It has nothing to do with the size of your voice. That's the biggest, like, I would say, like, misnomer of singing, is that a big voice is a big sound. No, it's not true. It's not true. That is a fiction of modern recording that most people just don't know. And I spent a lot of time trying to make my voice, I overbuilt the bottom basically because I was trying to replicate what I was hearing, not understanding that it was technology that was making that sound that big. So, other point that I wanted to make is that because I don't, in the tribute band that I'm in, the U2 tribute band, I don't work out my voice every day, like when I was, or every other day when I was in the other band, because we were playing every weekend basically. Well, when you do that, your mid voice starts to go, and any astute vocalist is hearing the little chirpiness in my mid voice. They can hear it, and you'll hear it when I'm going to sing a couple of songs to just show you the differences in sounds. That you'll be able to, you can actually kind of do some cool things with it if you know how to use it. So I guess with that, my basic update is this. My basic review is this. Does Ken Tamplin's program work? Yeah, it works. I think you should do it. I've heard people say that I don't get it and I think he's wrong and those are really bad exercises. There's things that he does. I guess my review is there's things that there's one particular exercise that he does that I go, I'm not doing that. I don't know what you're doing. I don't understand why you're doing it. This is the first I've heard of it. And in the whole program, and it doesn't really make sense. And even when I listen to your video, I can't make sense of why you would do that. It's the one where he goes, he does that one. And I'm like, it's the one where he says, I sound like a dying cat. I'm like, he says it makes sure you're converting up top. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I can tell you, having sung a lot, the hardest parts of singing are two things. The hardest parts for me personally are two things. One, converting vowels correctly at speed. I can't even really think of one, but usually like E to ah is really hard. So like if you don't get that right, you'll usually chirp. That one's a hard one. And you have to learn how to negotiate that in your throat. And by the way, nobody can tell you how to do that. You have to just do the exercises until you start feeling it. One of the things that I do as a modification to his program that helped me was the inverted scale, where it goes la la. I've done that wrong. But then I would go son of a gun. This is who I am, right? Whatever. And then at the top, instead of coming back down, going la, which he prescribes, I actually would change the vowel. I would go la, and I would go la, like that. And I did that wrong. Don't judge me, whatever. I'm just doing this improv, so I don't really care. My point is that I would purposely focus on changing those vowels back and forth like that, which would give me the comfort level of, not being surprised by it during a show or something. So, anyways, what I thought I would do is just give a few example songs that would show some of this in action and see if it can explain some of the things that happen in the voice and how you can learn to sort of put it all together. And if I come across a part, or when I come across a part, and by the way, I'm going to screw up because reasons. It's whatever. I hope you get the point. I'm not trying to prove that I'm a great at anything other than trying to apply these methodologies. But the idea is when I come across the thing that happened, I'll show you the application of whether or not it's in the mid-voice, whether or not it's a compression issue or holding your breath. Okay? So the first one is Stuck in a Moment. I am not afraid of anything in this world. There's nothing you can throw at me that I haven't already heard. I'm just trying to find a decent melody, a song that I can sing in my own company. I never thought you were a fool, but darling, look at you. You gotta stand up straight and carry your own weight. These tears are going nowhere, baby. Oh, you've got to get yourself together. You got stuck in a moment and you can't get out of it. Don't say later will be better. You got stuck in a moment and you can't get out of it. Okay, so there's that one. Now, one of the things that you probably, it's harder to notice. I hope that sounded good. But one of the things that you notice, and especially with U2, I got one more U2 song, and then I'm going to go to an Audio Slave song. One of the things that's really common for Bono to do is he goes super hard to the front of the chord, and then he actually backs off on the end of a phrase. He does this so commonly. On the next song, you'll see it a lot. He goes like this on, and you notice it really on the pre-chorus and chorus section. Watch. He goes like this. I never thought you were a fool. Like that. You see? And then he goes, but darling, look at you. And then he goes harder. You gotta stand up straight and carry your own weight. These tears are going nowhere, baby. You've got to get yourself together. You got stuck in a moment and you can't get out of it. So he's bringing the throttle down basically almost all the way to the end. It's part of what makes, golly, frankly, him so awesome. Okay? And then, in my opinion, so then there's another one that goes like this. I should just pull it up real quick just so that I don't screw anything up. I was going to do it from memory, but here we go. Bear with us. Yeah, there we go. There you go. You'll notice it a lot on this one. Well, is it getting better? Or do you feel the same? He's really doing it here. Will it make it easier on you now? You've got someone to blame. You say one love, one life. What is one need in the night? Okay, so right there, I'm actually using the breaks and the yodels that I are really somewhat due to the weakness in my mid voice right now due to the lack of exercise. And with carefulness, you can actually use that. It actually helps you with the emotionality. Some people learn how to break. I don't know. I never really understood that when I was actually doing KTVA early. My voice didn't break, so I didn't understand how to. I just didn't know how to do it, and nobody could ever. Well, I don't know if I didn't run with a lot of singers. I didn't run with a lot of good singers, and there are a lot of them, obviously, but I didn't have access to that, so I didn't know how to do it. But that said, let me go to another song where I want to show you. Again, this is less about the Bono approach of heavy to light, as much as it's about mid chest and mid voice tone shaping and how you can do it. I haven't sang the song in a long time, so I'm gonna hope it works for me. We'll see what happens. Here we go. I actually don't know what the tempo of this song is. There we go. On a cobweb afternoon in a room full of emptiness by a freeway, I confess I was lost in the pages of a book full of death, reading how we'll die alone, and if we're good, we'll lay to rest anywhere we want to go. I long to be room by room, patiently I wait for you there, like a stone. I wait for you there alone. Okay, so on that one, believe it or not, that one's actually easier. It was actually much easier because the singing is more about restriction, holding back, than it is about going forward. If you go back to, I'll just go back to the Stuck in a Moment song. Check this out. Where he says this part. I never thought you were a fool. That is so forward and front on the chord, and to get his tone and to kind of get his approach, I never thought you were a fool. I'm actually yawing into the thought. I never thought you were a fool. To get that sound, and I'm shaping it way down to get that almost chirpy sound. If you try and pull it back and you go, I never thought you were a fool. So if I was trying to not be Bono in that way, I would probably do something like this. I never thought you were a fool, but darling, look at you. Oh, you gotta stand up straight and carry your own weight. These tears are going nowhere, baby, baby. Like that. Versus, I never thought you were a fool, but darling, look at you. Bono sings like that on the edge, and that I think leads to a lot of his chirpiness. Now, Cornell doesn't do that. His technique was poor at times. I think poor just because, I don't know, sometimes when you figure out how to get to a tone and you don't know how to do it the correct way, you will cheat into the bad way because it sounds closer. At least I know I've been guilty of that. I'm not criticizing the dude. He's definitely one of my heroes. I'm just saying, like, that's been my experience with how to get there. But if I were as I go to the end of the verse and into the chorus, I'll show you kind of how I'm getting there. Of a book full of death, reading how we'll down. So I'm using my larynx up and down a little bit. Of a book full. So what I'm doing is just larynx down. Of a book full of death. Larynx back up. Now I'm all the way forward, doing the amphitheater. Reading how will, and then it's just a question of like how much emotion do I want to put into this word. Die alone, or die alone, die alone. Of a book full of death, reading how will down, death will go, will lay to rest anywhere we want to go. And now this note right here, I don't have to come off that hard. I actually slammed that sound, and I didn't want to do that. I didn't mean to do that. So it would be better if I went and not and. That's actually, when you do that, it's actually hard to maintain it, and you'll actually have to reset in order to hold what you want to do. So it's better if you just kind of slide onto it or climb onto it a little bit more slowly. Anywhere we want to go. I long to be. Now that two, I'm actually cleaning up the chord, meaning and resetting before I go to the next one. So think of, you don't have to say why, but like it's a good way to, like with low attack, come on to the sound. I long to be round by round. So you can slow the attack on the onset, which when you do that will allow you to like really press down on the compression, which is and depending on how good you are at navigating that was too much. With the air, you'll be able to hold that. For me personally, I can just tell you, like, it is not easy for me to just do that, like pick a note and on command. I've got to kind of be like in the flow. For me to just pick it out like that is actually much harder for me. And I relate that to inexperience, not because it can't be done. So, long video. Bottom line is, between those three songs, I hope you can understand, like, one of the things that I have learned, and I think is true about KTVA, is that you actually have to go the opposite direction of what the teacher seems to be indicating to you to do. Now, he'll tell you to slow down, but he doesn't do it himself. So in a lot of cases, we become competitive, whatever the motivation is. At least I know that I was. I even said that to him, like, I want to be like you, and no, I don't want to be like KTVA. I don't want to be like Ken. I don't want to be like Ken. I mean, his voice is cool, and for what it does, it's really cool. But for me, I'm having fun investigating what it's like to try and be Bono. I'm not interested in trying to be Cornell or anything like that, but I'm interested in figuring out how these shapes work and how these sounds work and how I can, be more of a soul and blues singer and much less of a belter, although belting is always there. It's kind of always been one of my strengths. And I think the program's really good, but well, let me just say this last thing. If you've made it this far, you'll probably appreciate hearing this. What Volume 3 does is it is a very hard version of Volume 2. There's nothing in Volume 3 that you need to be better at belting. Nothing. You can get it all there with Volume 2. one of the things that is hard to develop, and I never did it, by the way, is head voice. Like I never, like I never did that. So I had a really strong chest voice, but not a strong head voice. And why that was important is because I could get up there, but getting back down or navigating, and I was always falling off on pitch. Pitch was always a problem, and I didn't understand. Pitch was not a problem of me hearing the notes incorrectly or not having muscle memory. Lord help me, I did so many scales. The pitch problem was is that the throat would close. So I would focus hard to get the whatever the note was, doesn't matter. And then somewhere in there, I would close down or let go of diaphragmatic support, and then right in the ditch it went. And once you fall off, again, the mechanism functions based on being open and being relaxed. The throat has to be open. And I can tell you, when you feel your throat being open, when you feel it going, whatever that scale was, I was just making it up. I know that I can bring that feeling on command now. Like that's actually what opens it up. It doesn't mean I learn songs faster. It doesn't mean I'm 10 times better of a singer. It means I'm much more consistent with the things that I do. And I know what my ranges and limitations are. So I'm spending my time focusing on like how to make myself better and feel good with it. I still feel like the program is overdone and there's just a ton of work in there that is not maybe necessary. But I'm not an expert. What I do know is that if you are belting, and what I've learned about you too specifically is if you are belting in your mid voice for a lot of the work that you're doing, you know, Foo Fighters, Audio Slave, U2, that kind of music, you got to work out at least a couple of times a week. You're gonna have to, because the voice just atrophies quickly, and especially as the older you get, it just atrophies quickly. It doesn't have muscle memory. It just doesn't hold on. And what I've experienced when I didn't, and when I'm not, is that my mid voice feels chirpy and it feels a little stressed. And I'm like, well, why is that? Well, you know, there's atrophy. And anyways, that's it. So we're at 27 minutes, too long of a video. I don't care about range anymore. I did lose. I used to hit an A above high C, and I could do that on command. Can't do it on command anymore. The highest note that I can do on command is like an F sharp. I guess that's still above high C. And in scales, I've been able to, I think it's a relaxation issue. It could be from the vagus nerve thing that I had where my vocal cord was paralyzed. I don't know. But I don't care. Those notes are like unusable. There's like one song I can think of. It's Here I Go Again by Whitesnake. Like there's one song where that note would ever get used, and so it's just like I don't care. Or maybe Take on Me, but I think that's a G and not an A. So regardless, I hope this helps somebody. But that's my updated review of KTVA. I think it's worth it. The mid voice workouts and mix voice. So meaning. A lot of us spend time building up chest and thinking that's how you're going to grow. It's actually not. That's how you grow the connection, which for some people can be really bad. Mine never was. For whatever reason, it just never was. I never really, you talk about the speed bump or the yodel, I could do all the scales and I never did that. I never had that problem ever until I got like older and started, having a weaker voice for whatever reason. But what I would do different now is I would spend one day on chest, one day on head, and then one day on mix. And mix, you don't actually got to do very often because like once you get the idea, mix is where you really learn to keep the throat open. That's where you learn because you're controlling the velocity the whole way up and down. That's something I could never do. It was always just like a race car racing to the end of the track, and I never knew how to like slow it down and maintain that control. U2, the U2 tribute band, as a forcing function, created in me the need to understand better my mixed voice, something I just frankly overlooked and didn't think I needed. Again, because I was focused on range. I was like, oh, I got the range. Well, yeah, but it's like not usable. Your voice on the low end sounds great. Your high end sounds like the most uninteresting thing ever. So regardless, that's what I would say. I would focus one day on chest. I would focus one day on head. The bright ping is right, and anybody that's disagreeing with that, I frankly just think they either have not tried it or they don't understand that bright sound is actually what that connection is, what makes, whether it's just a psychological connection or there's actual strength. That to me is what grows the voice. It grows it in range, and it grows it in actual, I don't know if it's tessitura, like the strength, like your like that. It does that. And then learning how to use your diaphragm. A lot of moving variables with this stuff, but I would just say if you like any of your early results, you're going to like Ken. If you can't stand his tongue sticking out, which again, I don't, whatever his explanation is, I've never seen any, I've actually seen one other person do it. And I asked him why he did it. It was really early. It was maybe almost 8 years ago, and he said he didn't know. But he sang really good. He was a super good harmony guy. But I've never seen anybody else do it. And as much as I tried to like figure it out, and I was like, nah, I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me. Glad it makes sense to him. That's wonderful. He sounds great. But it doesn't make sense to me. So if he does make sense to you, keep going. If he doesn't, find somebody else. There's so many coaches out there. Ken is, he's just one in a lot, you know. And the cultish Ken's better than everybody else. Ken's not better than everybody else. I can just tell you that. The people who are better than Ken are not even in Ken's league and would never even bother stepping down to his world and even attempt to compete with him on YouTube because they see him as an amateur for saying that he's better than everybody else, right? I mean, when you're right, you don't need to say it, do you? So, anyways, that's my thought. And I hope it helps. See ya.